Hey friends, so today we're going to be rounding to the nearest hundred. Expectations for today stay muted unless called on by the teacher. I need your listening ears and your observant eyes. And please do not start working on the worksheet until the end of our lesson. The materials you will need today is rounding to the nearest hundred worksheet. And I have a picture below. And you're going to need a pencil. All right, friends, let's get started. Today's lesson, we're going to learn how to use a number line to help us round to the nearest hundred. This is important because it's going to give us a visual of what hundred the given number is closer to. So some vocabulary that we need to know is estimate means about how many or about how much. To round is to find about how many or how much by expressing a number to the nearest 10, 100, 1,000, and so on. Today we'll be focusing on the nearest hundred. So now let's practice rounding. Are you ready, friends? All right, friends, so our first example. The first thing we need to do is we need to figure out what number these arrows are pointing to. So we have 100 on this side and 200 on this side. What do you think we're counting by? Right, we're going to count by 10. So we have 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, 170, 180, 190, 200. So first we need to label what our arrow is pointing to, and we said this one was 120. What about this arrow, my friends? Yeah, think about it as 10 less than 200. What is that? 190. Good job. So now that we know what our numbers are, now we need to figure out if we're going to round to the nearest hundred. So I'm going to draw an arrow pointing to my nearest hundred. So do we think that 120 is closer to 100? Or do we think that it's closer to 200? Right, it's closer to 100. So I'm going to draw an arrow pointing to 100. Now we need to round 190. Is that closer to 200? We're rounding to the nearest hundred. So is that rounding to 200 or 100? Which one is it closer to? 200. So I'm going to draw an arrow pointing to the 200. Amazing job, friends. And just so you remember, since we're rounding to the nearest hundred, we underline the hundreds place. And then we're going to put a box around our tens place because we're going to look to our neighbor to the right. And if that number is 4 or less, that means we are rounding down. So that tells us we're going towards the 100. We're rounding to 100. And if this number happened to be 5 or more, that means we're going to round up. So for instance, we're rounding to the nearest 100. We're underlining the hundreds place. Is 9 5 or more? Right, so that tells us we're rounding up to 200. Great job, friends. Now let's do another example. All right, friends. So now we have a number line that goes from 300 to 400. We need to first label the numbers that these arrows are pointing to. What number is this on the number line? So we have 300, 310, 320, 330, 340. 350, 360, 370. So now we've labeled our numbers that we need to round to the nearest hundred. Is 340 closer to 300 or closer to 400? So remember, as we did yesterday, we can either count our hops or we can look at our tens place and see if we need to round down or round up. So let's do it both ways. So let's count our hops going towards 300. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it takes 4 hops to get to 300. Now let's see how much it takes to get to 400. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it would have taken 6 hops to get to 400. So we know that we're rounding to 300. So we're going to draw an arrow going towards the 300 because 340 rounded to the nearest 100 is 300. Great job, friends. Now, 370, is that closer to 400 or closer to 300? What are we rounding 370 to the nearest 100? Right, because it's closer to 400, we are rounding to 400. So 1, 2, 3 hops that it took. And remember, friends, another way you know what the answer is for rounding to the nearest 100. You underline the hundreds because you're rounding to the nearest 100. Then you're going to look to the neighbor, which is 7. Is 7 5 or more? Yes, so that tells us we're going to round to 400. All right, friends, now let's do a problem from our homework. You are all doing amazing, friends. All right, friends, so we all need to get our rounding to the nearest hundreds worksheet. And I'm going to be doing number 3 with you. And then I want you to do the rest on your own. So similar to the examples we did before, we have a number line from 800 to 900. We need to figure out what number the arrows are pointing to. So we have 800, 810, 820, 830, 840, 850, 860, 870, 880, 890. And friends, if it helps to write all the numbers on the number line, then you can do that as well. So now we identified our numbers and we filled it in on our number line. So we have 830 and we have 890. And we need to round to the nearest 100. So we're going to draw an arrow to where the nearest 100 is. Is 830 closer to 800? Or is 830 closer to 900? Right, it's closer to 800. And just to make sure, 1, 2, it only takes 3 hops to get to 800. All right, friends, and now 890. 890. Is that closer to 900 or is that closer to 800? It's closer to 900. So we're going to draw an arrow pointing towards the 900. That tells us that 890 rounded to the nearest 100 is 900. And 830 rounded to the nearest 100 is 800. So great job, friends. Remember, if you need help remembering and want to check your answer. We're rounding to the nearest hundred, so we underline our hundreds place. We put a square or circle around our tens place, and that's going to tell us if we're going to round up or round down. So is 9 5 or more? Yeah, it is. So that tells us that we're rounding to 900. All right, friends. We learned how to use Numberline to help us round to the nearest hundred. I want you to do the rest on your own. Remember, we have math help meets, and you can email us at any time, and we are here to help. I hope you all have a wonderful day.